Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on Azure pricing models. My name is Akila, and I'm the Associate Product Marketing Manager here at Sherweb, and I'll be your host for today. Before we dive in, I'd like to cover a couple of housekeeping items. First, the session is being recorded, and you'll receive a link to the recording along with the slides after the webinar. Second, we will be having a Q&A session at the end, so please feel free to submit your questions through chat or the Q&A window, and we can address them during that time. And lastly, at the end of the webinar, there will be a short survey. We'd appreciate if you could take a few moments to complete it so that we can hear your feedback and thoughts. So on to today's session, we have Jason Lambert who will be presenting. Jason is Sherweb's advocate of Azure solutions. He is a cloud infrastructure veteran with over 10 years of experience assisting MSPs in enhancing their Azure skill sets and building IaaS solutions for their clients. So for today's webinar, we will cover what the different pricing models are for Azure, how do the pricing models compare to each other, and how to choose the right plan. And now I'll hand it over to Jason.
Thank you, Akila. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us here this afternoon. I want to talk first a little bit about Sherweb and what we offer you as our Azure partner. So when you work with Sherweb, we're here to provide partner enablement. We do presentations like this one here. We're going to talk about pricing models around Microsoft Azure. We can also help you on solution design. So if you have customers that are talking about Azure, but maybe you're not comfortable delivering Azure solutions to your customers, we can certainly help. I think it's a little bit of like a chicken and the egg. You may want to go out and talk to your customer, but you might not have the technical skills and ability to deliver, or maybe you have the ability, but you haven't got the customers yet to deliver on. My recommendation to you is go out and find a customer that is interested in moving into the Azure environment, and then reach out to your Sherweb sales rep and ask for the Azure team. Let them know that you're working with a customer that has an Azure opportunity, and we can get those opportunities put together. We can help you do the scoping, the sizing, make sure that you've got the right solution for your customer's fit, and be able to deliver the services. We also have a pro services team here at Sherweb that can help deploy anything on Azure that your customer may need. We take care of small, medium businesses all the way up to large enterprises and everything in between. So rest assured, we've got your back if you choose, when you choose to ask your customer for their Azure business. And then optimization. We want to make sure that your customer is getting the absolute best experience when they move their infrastructure into Azure. And so sometimes there may be a little bit of financial I want to say runaway for lack of a better word, but maybe there's a billing creep. It's probably a better way to put it. Maybe your customer has some billing creep. Maybe your customer isn't fully utilizing the right VM, or maybe their workload changed. Anyways, all those optimization opportunities are something that Sherweb can help you with. So rest assured, we're here. We've got a team of people in our pro services business, as well as partner-facing members that can help you anywhere along your journey with Microsoft Azure. Just reach out to your sales rep here at Sherweb and let them know you want to get connected with the Azure team. Currently today, we've had some adjustments on our team, but we have a very seasoned business development representative by the name of Ron Farrar. He usually will be the first point of contact that you'll speak with. I believe we have another resource coming on board in the coming weeks. And then our pre-sales technical team, customer facing, would be Neil Kosh. And so Neil would be there. He works hand in hand with Ron and can get into the nuts and bolts of what your customer is looking for, and to make sure that we are providing the right solution for your customer up front. And then we do have people that aren't necessarily partner facing, rather, in our pro services team. We've got engineers, solutions consultants, etc., that help on the back end, as well as some project managers. So Any assistance you need, we're here to help. So today we're going to talk about the 3 Azure pricing models that you can take advantage of today when you do your business with Microsoft. The first one you're probably most familiar with, that will be Pay-as-you-go. Then we're going to talk about Azure Savings Plan and then Azure Reserved Instances. And throughout, I'm going to talk with you about why you might want to use some of all of it or jump into one model. We'll kind of go over some different ideas or solutions that we've presented to customers over time, well, partners rather, over time. And I love to get your feedback and your input. So at the end, we're going to do a Q&A. I would, if you've got a question as we're running through it, please, jot it down and I'll do my best to answer all your questions. So Azure Pay-as-you-go is usually the model that most Azure opportunities take advantage of. And the pay-as-you-go model is basically, I want to say, an hourly rate. I believe the billing goes down to at least a minute, if not to the second. And you literally can pay for your workload for as little or as long as you need it. So let's hypothetically say that you have some development you like to do or your customer would like to do. Maybe you've got a project, you want to see if something will work effectively, maybe a proof of concept, and you want to run that up in Azure. You could use the basic tier on the virtual machine infrastructure or the standard tier, whichever you like. Basic tier is a little bit more for test and dev. The standard tier certainly is for production. And if you only want to use that machine for a couple of hours, then you could go ahead, set up and provision a machine within a few minutes, and you could have an engineer do a couple of hours worth of number crunching or whatever that workload may look like. And at the end of the few hours, you could shut that virtual machine down. Now, let me be incredibly specific here. I want to be really clear. So there are, and logically, people sometimes look at, they spin up an Azure virtual machine and then they say, you decide that you're finished with it. So you go into the operating system and you hit the shutdown and you watch the operating system shut down and go into an off state. That does not shut down the rate calculator on the virtual machine. You will continue to pay for that virtual machine until you suspend that virtual machine, the actual compute. Similar aspect as if you were to flag down a taxi cab. So you're in New York City, you flag down a taxi cab, you ask the taxi to take you home. In the interim, you decide to stop at the grocery store or the dry cleaners. That taxi meter is running as long as you use the taxi services, whether you're in the vehicle or not, until you get to your final destination and actually let that taxi, you close your bill and move on. So you do have the ability in Azure to automate the process of firing up a machine. And also you could automate the process of shutting down the machine. So it could be really good in, let's say you're doing an Azure virtual desktop environment for a small business. They don't operate on weekends. Let's say, from Friday night at 5 o'clock till Monday morning at 8 o'clock, nobody is working on any compute resource. So you're really only using the compute Monday to Friday, and let's say from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. You could set up a schedule to turn the machines on and have them operational from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day and only actually pay for the 8 or 9 hours of use. Sorry, I was distracted. Right. So then in the 8 or 9 hours of use, if that total bill is, let's say, $5 an hour because you're paying for the infrastructure servers to deploy the virtual desktops as well. So it's $5 an hour times, let's say, 9 5s is 45. So you get the ideas. You get 45 hours in a day, $5 an hour. That could be your total pay consumption, and that would be technically your bill at the end of the month. There would be maybe some ancillary charges around egress data, if you had backup, how much data you're consuming, stuff like that. But those dollars are very small. And just because I'm talking about egress data, I want to go down this little rabbit hole. A lot of customers, when they're on-prem and are considering moving to the cloud, get very concerned about what they don't know, like the mysteries of billing. For example, there's no egress data charge when I'm working on-prem and I've got all my infrastructure on-prem and I'm sending emails, etc. Like I've never gotten one, so I don't know what one would look like. And because of that, I'm hesitant to moving to the cloud because I don't want this unknown bill to come and get me, right? Um, I've been doing this again, as Akila said, at least 10 years around infrastructure. And usually on the trainings, I will say this confidently. In my experience working with partners, and if this changes, please let me know if this doesn't work for you, because I tell all the partners, typically 250 to 300 gigs is roughly $24. I think it's like $8 per 100 gigs of egress data. A small business, if you keep that in mind, 250 to 300 gigs, it's roughly you're looking at $24 to $30, give or take. I always say to customers, the difference is like a Starbucks latte, one way or another. If you do get a bill that is 50 or 60 or $80, I would suggest to you that something's wrong within the customer's environment. Maybe you're being hacked. Like there's something happening that's not right. So I'll move on from there. If you have any questions about that, please feel free at the end to ask. Or if by chance you don't have any questions today, you can reach out to your account manager. You can send me an email. Let your account manager know you have some Azure questions. We'll get the Azure team engaged, and we'll be happy to answer all the questions that you and or your customer may have. So on the pay-as-you-go model, it's wonderful. It's flexible. You can use whatever you want, pay for it when you're consuming it. If you shut it off, the bill stops. There's no contracts, and a lot of customers actually do use it today. Downside is you're actually paying a higher fee for services on Azure, and lack of predictability. Sometimes, depending on how it's deployed and how you bill your customer, that bill could be slightly flexible. I've got ideas and thoughts around how you could make it more static, like the pricing more static. And we could talk about that on another webinar, or give me a shout. Some of them are around, I'll just throw a couple of them out there, food for thought. But so if you have 30-day months and 31-day months, if I was quoting my customer on Azure, I would price out based on a 31-day month. And then your customer is getting a static price for that server, 31 days. And then on a 30-day month, I will make the additional 24-hour, whatever that, if it's $1 an hour for the service, I'm getting $24 profit, because I'm going to bill my customer even though they've not consumed it. But that gives them a static fee, right? You guys are responsible for the billing. On the other side, for storage and egress data, you could give them tiers. So, if you use so many tiers worth of data, I'm going to charge you a fee. And as long as you stay under that tier, you'll get the same charge. If you bump up to the next tier, I'm going to have to right size at some point and bill you for the additional data or egress that you are consuming. So that's something that you could model out within your business and see if it makes sense. And if it does, great, because then you've got a more static bill out to your customer, which aligns more with what they're used to on the on-premises side. We're not going to talk today about CapEx and OpEx. That's not part of the pricing, but we did do a presentation. And if you go, actually, it wasn't a presentation, but if you go to our website under the knowledge base, you will find a document that's written about TCO and ROI and what the difference is between on-prem and cloud. There's also another one about physical servers and cloud servers that may help you along your journey, or reach out and we're happy to have a conversation with you. All right, the interesting one, at least for me, I've seen a lot of customers either do pay-as-you-go and or reserved instances. That to me is very realistic, happens a lot. I would say not a lot of customers use Azure Savings Plan. And this is just in my personal experience. I haven't seen a lot of it. But so Azure Savings Plan is all around the compute resources in Azure. So I'm going to skip this slide and I'm going to come back to it. So the compute resources in Azure would be premium. So you need the premium version of Azure Functions, application services, compute instances, so your virtual machines, your dedicated hosts, Azure Virtual Desktop hosts, because they actually host your virtual machine. Kubernetes would also be one. VM scale sets would be part of it as well. So it's all infrastructure services. And so how it works is you would decide, or you would help your customer to decide how much money they would like to commit in a savings plan in either a 1 or a 3-year term. And basically it empowers the customer to use any resource that is under the compute list that I just showed you at any time in any region. So it could be every region, any resource in the compute stack your customer can take advantage of, and it will basically, on hour by hour, the Azure service will go out and see what you're consuming in compute and deduct that from your savings plan. So it gives you the ability to get a discount. It's not as much of a discount as a reserved instance, but it's better than pay-as-you-go on the compute that the customer needs. And it could be random. So where this could be of a real benefit is if your customer, let's say, majority of the time uses a small instance for their compute, maybe database functionality, and then in seasonal business. Well, actually, I'll give you even a clearer picture. Let's say your customer has a seasonal business, and during the off season they have, let's say, 5 people using QuickBooks. So they have a certain size machine running QuickBooks for those 5 people. But then let's say over the holidays in December, they have 15 people that have to use QuickBooks. And I'm just making this up on the fly. So in December, for the holiday weeks, they could actually move up to a bigger machine and still get a great discount because they're in the savings plan. And then when the holiday rush is over in January, they could go back down to that small machine and still get the same discount feature, and funds are being removed from that service plan, rather than using reserved instance where you might, well, in a reserved instance you would be changing VM families. You can't change VM families. You can scale up and down in the same family, but you can't change between families. So my QuickBooks is around changing families and machine sizes, just to make it fit into the scenario. So That is absolutely exciting. And if by chance, let's say your customer, trying to think through all the scenarios. So let's say your customer put in $1,000 into a savings plan for services. And in 3 out of the 4 weeks of the month, on the third week, your customer has already consumed the $1,000 worth of their savings plan. And for the last week of the month, the customer will be paying pay-as-you-go price for whatever they've consumed above and beyond the $1,000 that was put in there. On the other hand, if the customer consumes less than, they're going to still be charged no way. They would only be charged the consumption of services that. So if they only use $800, there would still be $200 left in the plan. I got to go double check that. And I might be just getting it confused with reserved instances. On the reserved instance side, I'll talk about that in a minute. I want to make sure this is good. Let me flip back here. So savings plan. So you get a discounted rate for Azure resources in exchange for your commitment on a 1 to 3 year term. So you're saying to Microsoft, for 1 or 3 years, I'm going to commit to using these resources because I'm in the cloud. You get a really good savings. You can pay upfront or monthly. So if you want to, drop that $1,000, if you have budget, for example, and you have to spend the money, at the beginning of the budget season, you could do that, or you can pay monthly. Resource commitment. So you have to be committed to spending the money that you've invested in your savings plan. Limited flexibility. You've got it. You can't apply that money outside of the savings plan. Also, it does not cover your licenses. So if you have a virtual machine and you're running Windows on it, the virtual machine would be subject to the discount, but the license would not. You'd still be paying the pay-as-you-go rate on the license that you're running, or you could use Azure Hybrid Benefit, and you could buy a subscription license through Sherweb, through Azure, and we can apply that to the same term, so 1 or 3 year term on the subscription license, which is at a reduced rate based on the fact that you're using it for a year. AHB, I talked about that, and it cannot be stacked. None of these, so pay-as-you-go, you can use that all around the Azure services, but you cannot use savings plan to get a discount and then decide I'm going to apply a reserved instance to a VM in my savings plan to get an additional discount. That won't work. If you apply a reserved instance, then the reserved instance pricing will affect that machine, and everything else you use will consume the savings plan money. So hope that makes sense. If you have questions, jot them down at the end. We can go through Q&A. I'm going to flip over now. Where do we have for time? 25. So infrastructure compute services, these are the services that are around savings plan. I actually want to go out here. Akila, can you see my the browser?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to go down here. I want to show you. So if you're in the Azure calculator, this is the app service, and in order to take advantage of the savings plan, you need to be in the premium tier. Not even just the premium tier, but the premium V3, version 3. And you can see down here, this is your savings plan, right? Oh yeah, did too much here. Here's your savings plan. So you can get on, again, app services, 13 to 24%, depending on how many years you commit to. And on reservations, you can see there's more. You get 25 and 40% off on an RI. We call RIs for short. So I'm talking about reserved instance. So yeah, and you can use, again, I want to be really clear. Like, I can do this in US West. I could also do it in US East. And as long as I'm in the premium V3 service of the app service, I can still take advantage of savings plan. So it's any compute resource in any region takes advantage of the compute plan savings. If I go to Azure Functions, again, I'm in US West, so I'm going to go to US East, going to pick Premium. And then I come down here and I get to take advantage of savings plan. So there's 17% discount that Microsoft will give for committing to a savings plan. Now you can also, I've seen partners, because you guys manage the billing, you guys bill your customer, you decide how much of the discount you want to actually give to your customer. I've seen partners that have, when customers get in a savings plan or reserved instances, they share some of the discount to add to their bottom dollar, which is completely up to yourself. And then on the virtual machine, so I've picked a D2 V3 machine, and I get anywhere between 31 to 53% on a savings plan, or 40 to 62% on a reservation. So I just wanted to run through this. Those are the three that I did, just to give you an idea of how to get to the savings plan and what it looks like from the calculator perspective. And then when you go through the deployment in Azure, you can actually select your commitment to the savings plan. All right, I'm going to get this out of the way, and I'm going to flip over to Azure Reserved Instances. So Azure Reserved Instances is the best model to take advantage of discounts on Microsoft Azure. If you commit to a 3-year reserved instance, you can get savings up to 72% versus pay-as-you-go. So that's a really great discount. It's a monthly payment, and it does show predictability on the virtual machine. So again, you're doing a reserved instance on a 31-day month, and you're providing up to 72% on the discount. You are committing to that virtual machine for a 1 or a 3-year term. You don't have much flexibility. You can scale up in the family. So if you picked a D2 machine, you can scale up to another D2 series machine, different RAM, different CPU, but you can't change families. And I would actually, what I've seen most partners do is, if they want to change, let's say you're in a 3-year reserve and you're halfway through and you want to change your virtual machine, typically I've seen a VM reserved instance be canceled, change the machine, and then have another 3-year term on a new machine. That seems to be the way most partners have done it from what I see. So you can see on the downside here, there's a potential of a cancellation fee of 12%, and I have C here. I wanted to give this, I had a little bit of a back and forth with marketing because I didn't like the way I put that up there, but I did want to make sure that you have a direct link to Microsoft's cancellation policy. So I'm just going to slide this in front of us here, and you can see here, right? So this is the link that I shot you right here. Down under refund policies, Microsoft is currently not charging for early termination fees, but in the future, there might be a 12% early termination fee for cancellations. And if you scoot up to the beginning, this was updated back in May 2024. I've been watching this page for years, especially when I'm having presentations like this, because I can see if Microsoft invokes that policy. And so I would suggest to you that if Microsoft does decide to invoke their 12% early termination fee, they would say, as of, let's say, January 1st, 2025, any virtual machines that are set up and have a reserved instance attached to it moving forward would be subject to a 12% cancellation fee. And the reason why I say that is because last year, Microsoft was allowing people to basically exchange or turn in their reserved instance early and roll it into a different reserved instance moving forward. And as of January 1st, 2024, they stopped that. So you can't roll it into a different one. You basically have to, at this point, terminate and move on. So, but it's moot. I've always recommended, if I know my customer is going to do a reserved instance for any period of time, at this point, I would put a 3-year reserve on it. And if the customer wants to cancel it in 12 months, well, they can do it and there's no penalty. But that's up to you. And this cannot be stacked with any other discount. So I'm just being a little redundant, but if your customer is set up with a savings plan and they want to add a reserved instance, the reserved instance will supersede the resource that they're consuming in the savings plan. So let's just say they're using a D2V1 and they are using that in their savings plan and they're getting 30% off. If they then decide to put on a reserved instance on that machine, as soon as they attach that reserved instance, they might get 60% off, but it's taken away from the savings plan. It will not, the usage of that machine will not be deducted from the savings plan. It will just only be the reserved instance. So I hope that makes sense. Again, if you have questions, love to answer them at the end, or reach out to your sales rep. Best way to work through Sherweb, reach out to your sales rep. You want to talk to the Azure team, and you have a bunch of questions, or you want to talk to myself, and we can get on the phone and talk. No problem. Next one. What are we at for time? I'm almost sold. We're probably going to be a little short depending on the Q&A, but revenue impact, savings plan and or reserved instances. I've seen it time and time again because a partner bills the end customer. You can tell the end customer they're going to get a discount and you can keep some of the dollars for yourself to increase your profit margin. I would also be suggesting that if you're not in the managed services space, you may want to get into the managed services space. And the reason for that is because most managed services providers take care of doing patch management, updates, proactive management, threat management, all those other services, and they can wrap those services into the cost of Azure. So all the best practices that you have on premises are needed in the cloud too. Microsoft doesn't do any automated patch management. They don't do any threat detection in your subscription. They do on the entire infrastructure, but you still need to bring best practices to your customers' subscription. And with that being said, I want to make sure that, and I've said this probably for the last 4 or 5 webinars I've done, and I'm saying it again if you've been around and been following me. MFA, multi-factor authentication. Microsoft is going to enforce multi-factor authentication in your customers' Microsoft Cloud tenants. I'm not specifically talking about the subscription, but the tenant. Basically, the reason being is, bad actors have been hacking into tenants, especially around crypto and stuff, and they're using Microsoft infrastructure, and it's costing a lot of money. And Microsoft is basically saying there is enough security in market today, especially around MFA. MFA blocks, I think, somewhere in around 90 or 95% of bad actors from getting into using Microsoft Cloud services. They're going to enforce it. And so the enforcement date is going to be, it was July, and I've seen it being moved to October. And then you can submit a request. If you need more time, I believe you can submit a request to have it extended, I think, until like January 2025. My take, if you're working with a customer today, if you have customers that are doing Azure, if they don't have MFA set up, please, please, please set up MFA and protect yourself. Because if by chance you do get hacked and there is some rogue billing in there, Microsoft's not going to give you credit for it. So protect yourself, protect your customers. All right, potential partner incentives. So I like this part. One of the great benefits of working with Sherweb, and I've worked with a number of different distributors within my career, and I wish I had known about this earlier and did something about it, but Sherweb has a couple of people on staff that are experts, subject matter experts, around the marketing programs that are in your Microsoft partner relationship with Microsoft attached with your MPN ID. They will, if you're interested, reach out to your account manager, ask for to speak with someone on the Azure team that can look at your partner benefits with Microsoft to make sure that you're in alignment. If you will allow them, they will go in, share screen, they'll go in and click all the right radio buttons or sliders to make sure that you're capitalizing on the benefits that you can get from Microsoft. Some of them are around using reserved instances with your customers. Microsoft's pushing reserved instances. Some of them are around certifications. You have to make sure that you've got employees on staff that have certain certifications, etc. I heard, since I've been here, and I've only been here for roughly 6 months, that we did this exercise for one of the partners, and there was like $5,000 in benefits, that back office benefits that the partner wasn't getting. And he basically said, for how long has this been happening? And they're like, how long have you been a partner? It may not have been that long. It may have been, based on when they achieve certain certifications or certain significations within their relationship with Microsoft. It's a free service for us to go check and make sure that you're taking advantage of getting all the money that Microsoft owes you. And so make sure that you're taking advantage of those, and making sure that if reserved instances are part of it, please do those. And then ultimately, you're going to build trust with your customer. You're looking for ways to provide value back to them. You're looking to find ways to provide cost optimization, make them find ways to make them more optimized, better performing. Those are all great things that we as a team can help drive with your customer. And then ultimately over time, and we've seen it time and time again, you may have a customer that's doing, let's hypothetically say they're doing $5,000 a month in Azure today, but they've never been optimized. They've never used reserved instances or a savings plan. And we start presenting that to the customer. It's going to hurt us a little bit in the front end because we're going to take some hits because their ultimate spend will drop a little bit. But we at Sherweb have seen it time and time again. When you get a customer set up properly, they're taking advantage of the right pricing models, and they're optimized and running efficiently on Azure. They do more. Over time, there'll be more project work. The business is growing. They're hiring more people. You name it. You could probably think of all those upside things that they acquired. M&A, right? They're acquiring different businesses to build out their business. All that's going to come your way, and it's evergreen. So you might take a hit in the beginning, but overall, your customer trusts the fact that you've got their back. You're providing the value in the service, and you've got a great relationship. So just to recap the conversation, I know there was a lot of information here. Pay as you go, right? I want to use it. I only want to pay for what I use. I'm only going to use it for test and dev. My customer has a workload or a database that they need to crunch for a short period of time, and maybe a couple of days, and then I want to shut it off. All of that, pay as you go. You're going to pay the premium price for it based on what Microsoft charges, but you've got that flexibility. I want what I want when I want it, and I don't want it when I don't need it. Great. Savings plan. I've got a chunk of change I want to put in. I know I'm going to use compute resources. I might have to spend a little bit of time figuring out, what resources I need best for what workloads. And that's going to work for me, and I'm going to get a nice discount. As long as you're in the compute space, that could be really cool. And it may even be, let's say you've got a customer on-prem, and we've done our best to right size their on-premises workload into what it could look like in Microsoft Azure. So Sherweb, yourselves, your customer, we've all worked together to figure this out. Then, it might be on us to sell the customer on a savings plan as they're going through deployment, because, maybe there's a couple of, professional errors where we oversized or undersized a virtual machine for a workload. So then they're in the savings plan. We've got time and flexibility to really dial in on the workloads that the customer is moving into Azure, migrating into Azure with our pro services team or your pro services team. Then when, let's say, your customers now in Azure, they've migrated as much as they feel is important at this time. Now they want to start, building on additional incentives and applying resources, or virtual machines rather, on steady state workloads or resources. So they're not going to change much, but they want to get their maximum discount. That's a great time to put in reserved instances. And so you may have a customer that has some pay-as-you-go, some savings plan, and some reserved instances. And that's all fine. At the end of the day, the customer is going to take the best advantage of Microsoft Azure as they possibly can. Reserved instances, again, steady state workload, right? I've got QuickBooks, my customers used it, they've got 5 accountants, 10 accountants, they're using QuickBooks every day. I know that, as long as this customer's in business, QuickBooks is the service for them. I think everybody knows QuickBooks, is why I'm picking on it. So I'm going to get a reserved instance on it so they get the best discount possible to their advantage. So I basically just talked through this. Choosing the best options depends on your workload, your resource, your patterns. You want to make sure you're optimized. You don't want a machine running in Azure on a workload that's only 20 or 30% utilized. I would say if you do see that, there's probably a smaller machine available and can save your customer money to be more like 80% utilized. And I say this tongue in cheek because there could be reasons why you've got it set up that way, but I'm just trying to give you some best practices around how to take advantage of Microsoft and get the best return for your customer's investment. And now we've done pretty good for time, Q&A. So I'll ask Akila to open up if there's any Q&A. Love to answer any questions. And if there are no questions, then please, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your account manager, ask for the Azure team. We're here to help you. We would love to help you. Our Azure business is growing leaps and bounds in 2024, and we're expecting a huge upside in 2025, and we would just love to encourage you to be part of our journey.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jason. As he said, the floor is now open to any questions. If you guys have any, please feel free to put them in the Q&A window or the chat, and we can help answer them. Alternatively, you can also reach out to your account manager or sales representative, and they can put you in contact with our Azure experts. We'll just give a few minutes for questions to come in.
All right, I guess I did a pretty good job. We got experts out there on, savings plan, pay as you go, and reserved instances.
Awesome. Again, if you do have any questions that you have, please feel free to reach out to your account managers, and they can put you in contact with the right people. And if there's no questions, I guess that concludes today's webinar. Just a reminder that there is a short survey that will pop up for you after the webinar concludes. We'd appreciate if you could just take a few minutes to complete it and provide your feedback on this webinar and share what you would like to see from us next. Thank you all for attending and have a wonderful rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Thank you.
Bye.